The way I like to do this is I like to have a sort of collection of images that I keep on my hard drive of characters. Uh, and you can see that I have all sorts of different images here. These are ones that were grabbed from the Paizo website. I'm going to be running a campaign in Legacy of Fire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to open it up in Photoshop. Now what I need is a canvas that's a little bigger than the default canvas. So I'm going to go down to canvas size and I'm going to just square this off a bit and give myself a little more height to work with. And I'm going to do this so I can do some cropping and stuff later. And then the next thing that I need to do is I need to take this and I get rid of the white background. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to duplicate this layer. And we'll kill the background layer and turn it off so that we can see where we've got transparency. And we're going to go over here. We're going to grab the magic wand tool. This is going to be pretty small, so we don't need to get super fancy with it. Boom. Now we have this against a transparent background. Magic wand tool lets us do that pretty quickly and easily. I missed a spot, but that's not going to matter much. You'll see in a minute why. Alright, now what I'd like to do is I like to duplicate that layer again. And on that background layer, I do a select all, and I nudge it with the move tool because that sort of tightens the selection around what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go to the select menu, modify, expand, and with an image of this size I'm going to expand it by about 25 pixels. And you see that gives me a selection that goes away from my sprite. And now I'm going to go edit, fill, and I'm going to fill that with white. Select, deselect. So now I have a sprite with sort of a white border, and now you can see why that doesn't really matter. And we're going to come on over here and we're going to merge those two layers together. And then we're going to apply we're going to duplicate this new composited layer. And this one here is going to become a shadow, and this one is going to be the sprite. So we'll start with the shadow. What I like to do there is I like to select it. I'll use that same trick I did before. I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to use the move tool and nudge it so that the selection tightens around it. Edit, transform, distort, and then we can grab this and we can move it. Alright, you can sort of see where I'm going already possibly. We'll give ourselves just a little more space, and then we're going to move it so that it's sort of where a shadow would be. And then we're going to finish that distortion. We're going to edit, fill, and we're going to fill it with black. So now it looks like that. And then we're going to deselect it. We're going to go to our filter menu and we're going to type blur, Gaussian blur. Depending on the size of your image, you need to. This is a pretty big image, so I'm actually going to blur by like 18 pixels. Say OK. And I find this works pretty well if we set the opacity down to about 60%. And so now it looks like that. So now we have a shadow behind our guy. Now the guy's going to blend with certain backgrounds if we're not careful. So one of the next things we're going to do is we're going to give him a slight shadow edge. We're going to pick his sprite. We're going to go down here and we're going to tell it we want to give it a drop shadow. Alright. We want the distance to be 0, the size to probably be about 10 pixels. The angle won't matter because the distance is 0. I think maybe that's even better. Because it's going to be very small. We can't be too subtle. So now you can see over here that we've sort of put a shadow behind the figure all the way around. And so I like that. We'll say OK. Now we're ready to get down to brass tacks, as it were, and make the actual sprite out of it. So we're going to go into here, and we're going to tell it we want to a fixed ratio of 1 pixel to 1 pixel. I tend to come in fairly tight on these, but obviously you need just a little padding or you cut off your shadow and stuff. And I let them be a little bit off-center, though this one is small enough that I think I can center it. Final thing that I would probably do with this is when you make them small, you tend to lose definition in the image, just by nature of having smaller pixels. And this is a fairly nuanced image. I'm actually going to cartoonize it a little bit. I'm going to go filter. We're going to try for poster edges. All right. And I'm just going to say OK. And we can sort of look at what we've done to it. Note that we're losing a lot of subtlety, but it's going to be so small that that won't matter. And then we're going to adjust its levels. Try to get, let's move this control so you can see as I'm doing this. We're going to try to get the insides bright, but the outsides dark. We want a nice contrasty image. So we went from that to that. And we'll say OK. I like image crop. And we're going to say image size. And I like to do two sizes, 64 by 64, which is the base grid size. I almost always find that after doing one that small, I need to go sharpen, unsharp mask, something like 50% sharpening with a 1 pixel radius. Okay, here it is after sharpening, before sharpening, after sharpening. And then we say File, Save for Web and Devices. Save this as a PNG 24, since those allow alpha transparency. I say Save, and I'm going to put this in my villains directory. It's probably where it's going to end up being. We'll just get rid of all the piezo naming convention there. And I tend to use 1 to indicate that that's a 1 square image. Save. And then I'm going to undo, go back to my crop, and image size 128 by 128. Filter unsharp mask, it'll repeat the same one. File, save for web and devices, and we're going to say save, and we're going to save that in the same place, except that we will call it FRCard2. Save. And then sometimes when I'm doing this, I like to have the image be marked as being that of a bad guy as opposed to a good guy, just to make it easier for the players to identify things tactically. And the way I would typically do that is I would create a new layer. I would take that layer and put it underneath the drop shadow. I would grab the circular selection tool and I would drag out a circle towards the bottom, maybe position it a little bit. I would then fill that circle up. Can't do it that way. I would then select a sort of a nice red color to indicate that this is a threatening character, perhaps. And I would go Edit, Fill, use foreground color. Okay. All right. Select, deselect, and then we're going to change it so that it is not 100% opaque. We're going to give it an opacity of probably about 80%. I like it if a little bit of whatever terrain he's standing on shows through, and we're going to save that. Save for web and devices. Save. And we will call that ZephyrCode2 underscore B. All that's left really is to go into gametable. In gametable, we will tell it to scan for pogs. We will open up our villains directory. There they are, and then we'll just we'll bring them out to play here. Let's go over here, our smaller tactical map, and we will grab the ZephyrCard1 figure. There he is, and then we'll go over here to a larger tactical map, and we will grab the villain 7-2. This map is designed so that you don't necessarily have to have them line up perfectly with the squares. I note I didn't match my red. Oh well. And then we'll go to one more map here, just while we're playing around. This is my sort of map from a book that's been scaled up to use as is. And we will grab the little guy again and bring him in here to add him to the fray. So that's how I'm doing pogs right now.